Many don't know that there was about 30 plus distilleries that called Chattanooga home prior to 1915. They were wholesalers that were all around the city that provided brands like Wakeman Distillery, or Wakeman brand. Wakeman Distillery is one of the oldest, it may be the oldest distillery that was in Chattanooga. This is a shot glass and a small jug that we picked up actually in Nashville. The jugs that we have 4 of them. This is the second. We're all made in Daisy, well, it's now Saudi Daisy, but made in Daisy pottery. And they're really, really gorgeous and really, really fragile and really, really expensive too. But we thought we wanted to preserve them. This is the Chattanooga Distillery. I love the Chattanooga Distillery. Obviously, it's got the name. It was located right next door where Dean Love's Breadworks was, and closed in 1915. They did Tennessee whiskeys, and most all of the distilleries and the brands back then had this letter, these 2 letters, the C or the D, or they incorporated very, very similar branding coming across the board. Just the work that went into creating some of these labels and some of these designs, I love. E.R. Betterton.mov owned a brand called White Oak Whiskey, and their location at the very end, 1915, was at the south end of what is now Market Street Bridge. They again had White Oak whiskey. There's a distillery. The way that the distilleries work in Chattanooga was that they would oftentimes they would source whiskey, sometimes from Jack Daniels. Of course, they would make whiskey here, and they would also have distilleries set up in other cities. So White Oak actually had one in Cincinnati. One of our friends gave me a bottle. It's an unopened bottle, the one on the right there, of White Oak whiskey. It's over 100 years old, and really, really like to taste it one of these days. I'm sure we'll figure that out. His grandfather was a minority partner in the distillery. The Scott Price Distillery is kind of in name only. He owned a couple of distilleries. Scott Price was one. The Lookout Distillery was another. We think he may have owned the Chattanooga Distillery, but the records aren't really clear there. This is a picture, if you go into the new Craftworks building just right down the street. Mr. Probasco, I guess, had these pictures and they blew them up. This is a picture of 13th Street. And again, if you go in there, it's a huge picture. This is in the very right-hand corner. But this is a picture of the Lookout Distilling Company 100 years ago. Right next to it is the Deep Spring Distillery from J.W. Kelly. This was one of their locations. They had a couple throughout town. If you get a chance to go in the Craftworks building, I think you might go to the Craftworks lobby. I think you should definitely check it out. It's just the kind of the bustle. You can't really see it, but the bustling in the streets is absolutely amazing. Again, this is just another great example of the art behind the printing and the labeling and the brands. Today we've got the 3-tier system, so it's whiskey distillery, wholesaler or distributor, and then you've got the retailer booths. 100 years ago, you didn't have all 3 of those. This is another Deep Spring distillery that is owned by E.B. Gibson. I think it's E.B. Gibson. This you can get this tin poster. There's a fair amount of them out there today. Actually, it was J.W. Kelly. That's what it was. This is a marketing piece that they did. It's kind of a membership card or ID card that you could have. I just love stuff like this. Wait for it. This is Paul Heyman. I threw this in because I think it's really neat. He's the wet goods man. If everyone could start calling me the wet goods man. He owned brands like Superhero, Hill Best Whiskey. He was more of a salesman, owning brands, not having. This is a great story. So R.M. Rose started in Atlanta, and in 1903 they had to leave because Prohibition had a small, Atlanta or Georgia had a small version of Prohibition before, kind of a state prohibition before a lot of other people. They moved R.M. Rose to Chattanooga, Tennessee. They also had a location in Jacksonville, Florida, but this is a couple of shot glasses from when they were here. Well, they moved because of Prohibition in Georgia and went to Chattanooga, but didn't have a lot of foresight because Prohibition in the state of Tennessee was in 1950. So they had to move again to Kentucky, and later R.M. Rose became Four Roses, which is a very, very popular whiskey today. It's in Kentucky. So I love the fact that a current distillery that's wildly popular has some of its roots, some of its heritage in Chattanooga. I think that's really, really amazing. On the left, that's a coin. They would give coins for people, 5 cents off a glass of whiskey. If you go into one of the saloons in Chattanooga, that's a R.M. Rose coin on the left, and then a Julian distillery on the right there. There's a ton of pieces. This is the last slide. This has nothing to do with Chattanooga, but this is a present that my mom gave me for Christmas. In the very right or left-hand corner there, it says cost encased Russell Lassiter, that's my grandfather, for possessing of a steel. So if my grandfather can make whiskey, I think that maybe we can bring whiskey back to Chattanooga.